from Mark 12, verses 1 through 17. Then he began to speak to them in parables. A man planted a vineyard, put a fence around it, dug a pit for the winepress, and built a watchtower. Then he leased it to tenants and went to another country. When the season came, he sent a slave to the tenants to collect from them his share of the produce of the vineyard. But they seized him and beat him and sent him away empty-handed. And again, he sent another slave to them. This one they beat over the head and insulted. Then he sent another, and that one they killed. And so it was with many others. Some they beat, and others they killed. He had still one other, a beloved son. Finally, he sent him to them, saying, "They will respect my son." But those tenants said to one another, "This is the heir. Come, let us kill him, and the inheritance will be ours." So they seized him, killed him, and threw him out of the vineyard. What then will the owner of the vineyard do? He will come and destroy the tenants and give the vineyard to others. Have you not read this in Scripture? The stone that the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. This was the Lord's doing, and it is amazing in our eyes. When they realized that he had told this parable against them, they wanted to arrest him, but they feared the crowd. So they left him and went away. Then they sent to him some Pharisees and some Herodians to trap him in what he said. And they came to him and said, "Teacher, we know you are sincere and show deference to no one, for you do not regard people with partiality, but teach the way of God in accordance with truth. Is it lawful to pay taxes to the emperor or not? Should we pay them or should we not?" But knowing their hypocrisy, he said to them, "Why are you putting me to the test? Bring me a denarius and let me see it." And they brought one. Then he said to them, "Whose head is this, and whose title?" They answered, "The emperor's." Jesus said to them, "Give to the emperor the things that are the emperor's, and to God the things that are God's." And they were utterly amazed at him. Word of God, word of life. Thanks be to God.
In the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, amen. I want us to take this piece of the story that we have, and I want us to really, let's look at this in the whole context of what we've been doing. Because now Jesus is in Jerusalem, and he is confronting the big shots. He's confronting the big shots, first of all, in the temple. So one could look at this and say, okay, he's confronting the established church, if you were to kind of put it. But it's established church in even a bigger way than we might see it here in the United States. Because established church then was part of this partnership that existed. So the government would work with the church and making sure that kind of people stayed status quo. They've said sometimes that the motto of the church is "Come wheel or come woe, our status is quo." We can do that sometimes. And so these power brokers are confronting Jesus. And I want us to think a little bit about why. Because a lot of times you might look at this and you might think, well, Jesus is a threat to them. Jesus is a threat to them because he's coming in and saying that he is the Messiah. And the Messiah is the one who's going to come in and overthrow the Romans and take over. But think about it. And if you take everything that we've been doing over the last few weeks, you'll realize, yeah, they may have been disrupted by a Messiah coming in, but that is just simply replacing power with power. We can handle that. They could have handled that. I think that they were scared down to their toes by Jesus, because Jesus was not just doing that. Jesus was asking them and telling them that the world needs to be turned upside down. Think about everything that comes up to this point. And that's the way it's happening in the story of Mark. For the last 3 weeks, we've been having Jesus trying to get his disciples to understand this flipped over world. And then finally, last week, remember he brought a little child, and set it there, and said, listen, this is the way you should start. See this child as the most important piece of the kingdom. And I think still the disciples kind of don't get it. Still, we don't get it. Because it's kind of, what I want us to do is very quickly, because and the translations matter, but to kind of roll it together a little bit. Last week we had the child, and the word in Greek was paidon, which comes from the root, horrifically for us, meaning expendable, or strikeable, hittable. That children in Jesus' time, this was not, kind of a precious moments thing that Jesus was doing. He was taking the weakest of their society. Okay? Paidon is one word. We would probably translate that as urchin or kid or some kind of those brats that we might that has that kind of feeling to it. There's another Greek word called teknon, which simply means that you are the child of. So, teknon of David and Maria. Okay? Much more neutral, but it's good. It's just stating, so it's a child of. And then there's a third one that gets used, and Jesus really likes this third one a lot. He uses it a lot. It's the word micron. That's why they're often translated as the little ones, right? Suffer the little ones to come to me. Micron. And we use that all the time, especially the scientists and stuff, right? Because of what's the size of a micron? It used to be the smallest measured. Now we're getting down to the subatomic stuff. But a micron, the smallest, and in Greek, it was the smallest. It was the most fragile. So I want us to be thinking about how Jesus is asking us to look at society. And this whole idea of, okay, we talked about paidon and expendable, but think about micron, because I think that really fits with us right now. What Jesus is asking us is to say, first of all, stop just thinking about yourself. Okay? It's an attitude change. I want you to start looking out and to start thinking about those that are around you that are the weakest, the most vulnerable. And wow, if that doesn't have traction for us right now. I was talking to one of the professors at WSU this last week, and she said, well, I was talking with a student, and they were kind of scoffing at this whole social distancing thing. And the student said, well, and this is not an ageist thing, but the student was saying, well, I'm 18, and it's not going to hit me that hard, even if I get it. And she said to the student, yes, but if you go home and visit your grandma, and all of a sudden it was like, it washed across his eyes as he realized, I could be putting other people. See, it's this whole idea of starting to look around you with a different attitude and saying, it's not whether I'm going to get affected by this or not, but how can I make it so that I'm actually loving and caring for those people around me so that I can make sure that they don't get it too, or that I can help mitigate or hold this thing down. Looking at those around us. Paidon. Teknon. Micron. During this last week, the congregation was hammered by the loss, by the death of Bev now. And I want you to think about Bev. And an interesting kind of backdoor example, because a lot of us maybe didn't know. Ida. Our society could have easily Ida. Teknon. She was the child of, she's the brother and sister, the aunt, she's related. And Micron, the least. But what I want you to look at and really make this your memorial beyond today. Because what I came to find out were all the ways. You see, you could look at the life and the gifts that Bev had, and you could say, wow. And she had obstacles. Folks, she had obstacles thrown into her life that most of us would have crumbled under in one day. But instead, she wasn't a saint. I'm not going to do that with anybody. But yet at the same time, she could take that and she had an attitude. So, Kirsten Peters was talking about that Bev has always been a part, and Zoe, the leader of a group that used to be called PAMI, or NAMI, but now it's called PAMI. A group that works with people that have emotional and illness issues. Bev was a part of that group for 30 years. 30 years. Reaching out and trying to see, there's the difference, folks. Reaching out. It's not just about you, but it's about how can I make other people. Bev worked for years down in the Sunday school and with kids to reach into their lives and continue to be the one, often unknown, that she was the one that was sending the flyers and the little worksheets, the faith-building things, to the young kids and the families. Okay? Zoe, the head of PAMI, sent us this note. Okay, I said 30 years, sorry. I misspoke. I'll correct myself on the spot. Bev Dow was a member of our PAMI group for many years. She joined us in June of 2006. We valued her insight, her intelligence, and her ability to advocate not just for herself, but for others. She was a long-standing volunteer, among other things, driving and attending meetings in the Tri-Cities, where she monitored policy for the state and the planning that was related to mental health services in this part of Washington. We learned from Bev, and she inspired us. I and my fellow PAMI members are grateful for these gifts and for her life. Will we allow ourselves to let our worlds be turned upside down? I remember like 3 or 4 weeks ago when there was a cruise ship coming in, and they were talking to people on the cruise ship, and they were saying, oh my goodness, this is so awful. We've been quarantined for 2 weeks. It could be for 3 weeks. Oh, and and I remember looking at those people and thinking, oh, toughen up, Buttercup. It's easy, isn't it, when you're watching somebody else? Now we are being asked to toughen up. We're being asked to turn our world upside down. We're being asked to do something that is phenomenally and basically Christian. Just like Jesus was saying, he said, start getting outside what's bothering you. Is this inconveniencing you? I can just see Jesus looking at us and going, oh, for heaven's sake. If I was worried about inconvenience, I wouldn't have even come down and been with you. But you're worth it. The people around us are worth it. Now is the time. Luther had this wonderful definition for sin. And I loved it because Luther was just so German, about everything. Some of his sermons are so crude that you can hardly even read them in English. But when Luther was talking about sin, the idea of sin, he said, oh, for heaven's sakes. He said, oh, for heaven's sakes. He said, you think of sins, and you think of sleeping with your neighbor's wife, or you think of stealing something. He said, I'm not supposed to do that anymore. I'll stand up. said, those are puppy sins. Here's the definition for sin. He didn't make light of those, but he said there's something deeper. Sin, he said, in Latin, incurvatus se. Sin is a heart turned in on itself. See how much deeper that is and more powerful? Jesus was trying to get across to us and continues to get across to us. No matter what the cards are you're dealt, can you look around you and recognize that it's a heart that is held open, a heart that's looking to the concerns and needs of others, and not just you. Jesus was a major threat to the powers that be because he cared, he loved. And now we're being asked to be inconvenienced. We're being asked to have our worlds turned upside down. And let's approach this in the same way.